This is Don. I'm an alcoholic. When I first got sober and doing my fourth and fifth step and looking at my inventory, I realized I had a lot of guilt towards my mother. I felt guilty because I had borrowed a lot of money from her over the years when I was drinking, and she was an easy touch. She was always good for a couple $100, and I availed myself of that opportunity at least once a month and sometimes more, and she always gave me the money. I never paid any of it back, and when I got sober, I realized I needed to make amends for that. So I talked with my sponsor, and I called my mother, and I made a date with her to take her out to pizza, and we would meet, and I wanted to talk to her about me being an Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, she had reservations about it because growing up in my family, there were alcoholics, and if it was ever mentioned, though, it was always, your Uncle Luther, he's an alcoholic, always whispered. So there was a lot of shame around it. And so we met for pizza, and over dinner, I talked to her about what being an alcoholic is, what it means, and how I was trying to live differently. And by the end of the dinner, we had a long conversation, and she became comfortable with it. And that's when she started telling me about my Uncle Luther and other people in the family that were alcoholics that I didn't even know about. It was a nice dinner, and it was a good time, and it was a good conversation, kind of on a level that we had never talked very much before. And at the end, I got out my check, and I said, I've got a check here for a couple $100, and I want to pay you back for some of the money that you've loaned me, and I want to do this over a period of time. And she took the check and looked at it and said, I don't want your money. I've never wanted your money. Still get choked up. She said, this is what I want. I want my son to be able to talk to my son, because I'd always avoided both of my parents when I was drinking. And she wouldn't take the money, but I determined from that time on that I would stay in touch with her, and I did. I called her a couple times a week and talked, and as she grew older and ended up in a rest home, I went and visited her regularly after work. Every day I'd drop by, at least on the weekdays. And eventually, it was sad. She eventually had Alzheimer's, and at the end, she one point asked me how my son was doing, which was hard, but she's still my mother, and I still showed up for her till the end of her life. Thanks to Alcoholics Anonymous and working the steps, I built a relationship with her that wouldn't have been possible before.